Hi, everybody, and welcome to this Friday's lovely edition of our lounge. How's everybody doing today? And I just wanted to let you guys know that you all know that the lounge is the show that books itself, right? It books itself. We have our guests come on themselves, and it changes at a moment's notice. So tonight, I know you guys saw the banner for Emmy Hernandez. She actually had a little bit of conflict tonight, and she is not going to be making it. We're going to see her another night live, but she actually, one of her lovely people has stepped in. Manifestation coach Jen Adamson has an amazing soulmate story and also the keys to manifesting that are the secrets to your finances, breaking that ceiling, and also to finding your soulmate after toxic love. So we have the same actual topic. It's just that Emmy will be joining us another night, and we have an amazing guest on tonight. So I just wanted to say hi to some of you who are on. Hi, Joe. Nice to see you. Yes, we have something for men tonight, too. We have our manifesting, and we have stuff for women, but our men, please feel free to say hello. And anybody else who's on tonight, feel free to jump in the chat, whether you're on Facebook or whether you're on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our channel. Just hit that little button, subscribe, so that when we are live, you will get an email and you will say, it'll say Marisa's live, come and interact. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. So we have two men. I just told our guest backstage, oh, it's mostly women. We got a lot of men on tonight. George, Snowboard George, how are you, Snowboard George? You have to come on as one of our lounge buddies. And you know what? I'd love for you to come backstage. Let me know if you want to. Maybe you could get in on the action here and talk about your love life, because I know maybe you might need some insight tonight. Am I intuitively correct? Maybe, maybe not. So I want to talk to you guys about, oh, hello, Margaret. Good to see you. Nice to see you tonight. I want to talk to you guys about our guest. I want to talk to you about who she is, what she does, and what she's going to be bringing to the table tonight. So Jen Adamson, she is a manifestation coach. She specializes in teaching women how to attract abundance, love, and purpose with ease. And like I said, we do have some stuff for men too tonight. Jen was awarded the 40 Under 40 Rising Star by one of Colorado's top business journals. She's like very impressive already as I'm reading the lines here. I'm already like, ooh, Jen, ooh, Jen. She is a practicing registered nurse and certified in quantum neurowiring. Now, I don't know what that is, but as you know, I love hearing about new things on the lounge and hearing about what some things are. And apparently these were channel downloads. So I'm very, very interested in hearing about this. I'm wondering if that's something like, you know, neuroception. I'm interested in polyvagal theory, rewiring the brain, wondering if that's what we're talking about, because I'm really into that as part of your transformation and your intuition. Because if you develop your intuition, which, as you guys know, my intuitive development online DIY course is coming out very soon. So are you on the wait list? I hope so, because if you're not, you got to get on it. To get on that wait list, the link's in the description of this video. And it's in the one on Facebook and the one on YouTube. And you will get special pre-launch promos. So make sure that you sign up for the wait list. You'll get notified when we're launching. And remember, to those of you who are new to the lounge, we're a magazine style show. We have experts on weekly, every Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm an intuitive medium, Marisa Liza Pell. And we also have live music. Also on different weeks of the month, we have our live musicians come on with some healing music. A lot of fun. So, and I also put out my monthly video forecast on the 15th of every month. I go over every key date. So we have our manifestation coach coming on tonight talking about manifesting, but it's all about intention, action, and energy. And I'm the energy part, where the energy has to match when you're taking that action for manifestation. So every month, I go over every single day of the month in this forecast, but there's a little catch. You got to be on my email list. Okay. I give you something, you give me something, give me your email, you get the forecast. It is a private forecast. So it's not public. You can't search it up, but people love it. So, you know, it's not just a PDF or a clickable link. You're getting a whole monthly forecast every month, but you've got to subscribe before the 15th of the month. It's in the description of this video. And if you're on if you're watching on YouTube, like us on Facebook. Our main community is on Facebook, Medium Marisa Liza Pell. Follow me on Instagram at Marisa Liza Pell, because I do all of our daily energy messages on there. So different sort of content. And subscribe to YouTube Connection Beyond. That way you'll get an email every time we're live. So who else is here? Oh my God, all the men. I just told Jen backstage, it's mostly women. So many men today. Hi, Chris. How you doing? Hi, Tim. How you doing? Joe, will this be available to watch later? Of course it will. We have a replay. You go just on the Connection Beyond YouTube channel. They're all on there. Not a problem. And Maria, she's here every week. We love Maria Calvert. Happy Friday. George is saying he's doing well. Yes, I do. There's no love life. Okay, we got to talk about that, Georgia Porgy. All right. If you want to come on the show, let me know. We'll send you, just put it in the comment. We'll send you a link to come on and maybe talk to Jen about your love life. I'll send you a private link. So just let me know in the chat if you want to come on and shoot in your email. Awesome. All right. So without further ado, I am going to bring on our lovely guest, Jen. I hope she's ready to go. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Marisa. How are you?
How are you?
So good. Thank you so much for letting me join you guys. This is like a fun group. I was dancing backstage to the music.
Is the music too loud, by the way, or are we good?
I love it. No, I can hear you fine. Yes, I love it. And it's like my jam too.
See, I always put on the music that I feel like is the energy of the host. I mean, of the guest. And I just felt you were a little clubbing, dancing, having a little wine.
Yes, you got to high vibes. That's one way that I raise my vibration every day is through dancing. So yes. Awesome.
Well, let me just introduce you guys to our lovely guest, and you are connected to the guest that was supposed to be here tonight.
Yes.
She had a little conflict, and you are one of her, she's a mentor of yours, right?
Yes.
So you're like a direct lineage. You guys are ancestral line here.
Yeah, we're practically related now.
Awesome.
Yeah, we are direct lineage. I have studied a lot under her, and a lot of let's just say a lot of the love part I definitely owe to Emmy and her work. So
okay. Yes. Well, let me just tease this for you guys so that you stay on the whole show. First of all, we talk about coaches and experts that come on here and they talk about toxic patterns in love, that, you know, there's all of us high achieving, successful, creative women and men too. They go through this. It's like you're just going in a cycle. You have that constant repetitive cycle. You break up with one person, you get into the next one. You're like, this one's different this time. Yeah. And then it's the next, you know, it's like, oh my God, I'm in this situation again. And this time it's a little bit worse than the last, right? Mm-hmm. And so we always have people coming on giving us tips about that, but you actually lived it. You went through it. You had a pivotal moment where you hit your emotional bottom with one of these toxic relationships. You were sitting outside. I'm not going to tell your story. You're going to tell it yourself, but you were like broken down in every which way, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, psychically. And now you are with somebody who you are really into. You feel like you've broken a pattern for yourself. You've broken a psyche. You've lived it. You've gone through it. And now you chose differently. And I always tell people, it's not hard to leave a relationship. I mean, a lot of times people stay too long. It's the next choice. Are you jumping right into another situation? And then if it's the right guy or girl, it's about keeping it if you're used to sabotaging yourself.
Yes.
And you're used to tearing everything down because you're used to chaos, you're used to drama, you're used to the toxic energy. Most people live out their whole lifetimes in this pattern and unhappy, and you've broken this cycle for yourself and your future generations. So we're going to hear that story. But before that, it's manifestation period time. I've talked about this on the weekly. I've talked about this on the monthly, that this 6-week period, no planets are in retrograde. It's the first time in a year. It's the last time it's going to happen for a while. This is the time to put the pedal to the metal on your creative projects, your financial projects, your work projects, your dream goals. And Jen is going to back me up here. And she's not only going to say, yeah, that's true, but she's going to give us those tips. And I have some talking points on that too, on your manifestation journey. Number one, I want to hear that story. And number two, she's going to be discussing with us, I have in my notes here. Where did I put it? Hold on one second. I know I put it somewhere.
It's in there.
It's in here somewhere. Okay. So what is manifestation? Why is it so important? Who you serve? What advice would you give to somebody who wants to change their life, and the common misconceptions about manifesting? So I want to start out with the myth busting. Okay.
That's my
Let's
favorite.
start out with the myth.
Yes.
Everybody thinks, oh my God, first of all, they could do it alone. They don't need a mentor or coach. I have my 10 people that are my mentors. I'm not out here speaking from a hilltop. And if your mentor doesn't have a mentor, there's something wrong.
Sure.
The other thing is that people think they could just think their way into a new energy, new vibration. Just do manifestation, do affirmations. The full moon is here. Let's sage ourselves and everything's going to be wonderful. No, we can't intellectualize breaking a pattern. We can't intellectualize manifesting or healing. How do you feel about this? And what are your misconceptions?
You hit it right on the bullseye, Marisa, because so much of what mainstream media is teaching about manifesting is exactly what you just hit on, which is do the vision boards, the affirmations, the visualizations, the smudging. And yes, that is important. That is absolutely part of the puzzle, but it is not the entire puzzle. So where I come into play with manifesting, I have a signature series and a signature program. It's actually about building your inner radiance. And so how you do that is through this 5-step series that I can share with you a little bit later.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's about doing that deep inner work. So it's so important when we're manifesting, when we're really wanting to manifest the love and the purpose and the abundance or whatever it is that we desire out of life, we need to come from a very high vibrational frequency. And we do that through that inner work. And sometimes that inner work is going to make us feel like shit. And so how do we navigate through that part too? Because it's all part of going with the universal flow. I think this is just like a perfect example where Emmy had a conflict and you and I, we all three of us went through the flow, and it's unfolding right before our very eyes. But yeah, that's so important. And I find that so much with the ladies that I coach and my clients that I coach, is that it's just, I think it's been kind of ingrained in us that it's just, oh, I smudge, I do visualization. I have this. And then, where is it then? Where is it?
Right. And it's like, I'm unintuitive. I mean, I'm in this job 25 years. Like, I've been in this job full time, been doing this work. And I can't tell you how many times I'm like, I read all the books. I'm affirming. I intellectually understand manifestation. I always understood it. But it would be like, I would get here and then it would drop. Then I would get here and then it would drop. What's going on with that cycle is that I didn't have the capacity to hold it.
Yes, to embody it.
It's just like when people do intuitive development, or I teach people mediumship. It's like they can't go and stand on a stage for 2 hours and hold a mediumship connection. They'll get a little bit of it, then it'll drop, and then they'll get a little bit more, and then it'll drop. But I thought you could intellectualize what you wanted. And if you believed it enough, and if you wanted it enough, why isn't it happening? If I forced it enough, it should happen. But the thing about it is, when we're intuitive, when we're sensitive, and when we're in that space, we're really sometimes disconnected and out of our own bodies and not connected to ourselves.
Yes. And then what energy is backed behind that, or what feelings are backed behind that? Because what we put out into the universe, we become an energetic match. We attract what we are an energetic match for. So if we're pushing and we're driving and we're using all our might and willpower to try and push this big boulder, when maybe that's not even the boulder we need to be pushing, we're going to come up with a lot of roadblocks, a lot of obstacles. And sometimes it can be very detrimental to just push through as well. It's it can be a very toxic energy.
Yeah, a lonely road too. And I think when people are pushing for those types of things, usually it's for a relationship, for finance, for success, or for fame, or for money, whatever that is. Those are usually the things that they're really missing the point, that they're looking further to connect. They're looking for a true connection in life. They're looking for a connection to themselves, to other people, and they think those things are going to fill them. And if you look at celebrities like Jim Carrey, he talks about this because he's kind of in like a spiritual mode and people think he's crazy. But he's like, I wish people could all go get famous and realize that it's not where it is. And then when he hit that point of like A-list celebrity, he went into such a depression because he's like, oh, this isn't where it is. Or I've had many millionaires on my show, many billionaires on this show. And they said all they wanted was to get to that end point of making that money. And they looked at their bank account digitally that day and nothing had changed inside of them.
So it's really important. You like, yes to all of that. Like, I'm just beaming right now. Something that it's so important is that when we are setting out to achieve certain goals in life, like love, or like you were saying with the millionaires and billionaires that you have had on this podcast, we really need to be honest with ourselves and take this inventory of what do we think that goal or achieving that goal is going to allow us to feel. Now, having that goal is not a bad thing. We should never be ashamed to have high achieving goals. I'm a very big high achiever. Yet I've learned from my corporate days and climbing the corporate ladder, which was more like a hamster wheel. I was manifesting things left and right, promotions, recognition, raises, all of it. I was like in a matter of sometimes weeks. But what I was finding is that once I hit that achievement, I would get a high for a quick minute.
Yes.
With some satisfaction, and then it would come crashing down. And I felt empty. And I was like, what's wrong with me? Why is this? I thought this was going to make me feel X, Y, and Z. And what I teach my clients is that we need to start with manifesting these things. We need to start questioning and asking ourselves, what is it that we want to feel right now? What is, by achieving that, what do we think that's going to create, the feeling that it's going to create? And then how can we start to foster that feeling, cultivate that feeling inside of us, and then watch, because the universe will unfold and give you either that or something better. It's really just a fun process.
And I think when you're trying to force your will on certain things, you don't really even know who you are yet. You don't even know yourself. And that was me. Like, I'm not sitting here preaching on a hilltop, but I like saw all those things. And I'm like, then when I really did the inner work, because I realized, because I wasn't Jim Carrey. Okay. I didn't get to that level, but I had certain times when I was speaking in front of 800 people or a live audience, or I was on a television show or on a radio program, major market radio, TV, national television. And I would get the lights, like I'd be on the set and then like everybody would go home and I'd be in the green room by myself and be like, okay, like that's what that feels like. And the applause of the audience, like being in front of live audience, there's nothing like it when they're just, having a good time and laughing, and you go home and you're sitting in front of your TV in your sweatpants and you're alone.
And you're like, oh, wow, I thought that was going to be a lot different.
And in that 5-minute high, you get that and you're like, okay, well, why is it not lasting? It's because I wasn't really in line with what I was. And until people are like, oh, when you feel the energy of something, you attract. When you actually feel it, when the head and the heart are connected and you feel it. And I'm like, yeah, well, I feel it. I want it. I'm feeling it, but that's not what it is. And one day it was like, it just hit me. And I'm like, oh, I know, I feel it now. I feel it in my body, not in my mind. Right? The energy is present. 100%. But until you do the somatic work, until you come back into the body, into the grounding and the balancing. And with the intuitive development, when I used to teach it 12 years ago in a school, in a physical space, we only focused on the techniques of building your intuition. But I'm realizing, like, some of the best mediums I've ever taught, psychics, or even famous ones that I know, batshit crazy, because their love lives, their love, it's just like they are insane because they're just giving out their energy and disconnected from the earth, which is where I was most comfortable, because maybe when I was a kid, that was my way out of my own head. Do you know what I mean? Out of my own self.
Exactly.
So people that did have codependence issues or dysfunction in their earlier lives, they develop a talent because they have to play like intuitive laser tag with, what's this person's energy like? How do I get around this? How do I, mediate these people arguing? How do I do this? And so they become talented, so talented with mediumship and its intuitive ability. But then I realized after doing my own transformational work, we can't just teach them intuitive abilities because they'll stay just disconnected and in la la land. We got to get their nervous system balanced and regulated. And polyvagal theory was my first introduction to it. I'm not sure if like you have some neuro wiring stuff, but I don't know where your program comes from with that. But I don't know if it's the same thing that I'm talking about.
Tell me a little bit more. Is it more like you talked about the somatic, but is it about reconditioning our nervous system? Yes, going back to the body. Yeah, absolutely. Rewiring. So quantum neuro wiring is absolutely, it's probably very similar.
Yeah.
It's both. So I get the client into a very grounding energy first. That's the first start, because you would hit again another nail on the head, which is that we can be airy-fairy. We can be kind of in the higher chakra system, which for a long time I was too growing up as a kid. I'm a very empathetic person, very intuitive. And one of the ways that I would, oftentimes when we come across uncomfortable feelings, we have three reactions. We either avoid, resist, or react. And the reaction is not necessarily the greatest reaction, right? And so I would avoid or resist it by going kind of in that more of that disassociation of my body. So anytime there was something uncomfortable going on in my life, I didn't know, nor did I know how to go through those coping mechanisms. And so I would go out and what's so important, because we're here on this planet right now, we're humans. We are having a spiritual experience, but we are humans nonetheless. And we need to learn how to play this game, right? This virtual reality that, yes, there's different portals and different dimensions, and we can access our intuitive side. And that's really important. And it's also very important for us to ground and do things like inner child work. And the quantum neuro wiring is a balance of both. It's going into the body and grounding by first accessing what the true choice is. And what that means is essentially what is it that you're looking to achieve? And it's not, we really go deep, because there might be something. So say, for example, someone wants to wake up early in the morning to get, stuff done, get her workout done, work on her business and do X, Y, and Z. And maybe she's part-time. And so I'm like, we'll go into this deeper and we'll really say, okay, is this your true choice, or what is your true choice? And what we ended up finding with this client particularly is that she wants to quit her job. She wants to be able to quit her job and focus full-time on her business. So we get into that true choice of, okay, so it's not necessarily that you need to wake up and power through the morning when maybe you need an extra hour of sleep right now. It's more of, let's work on this end result. Let's hold this image. And then what we go into is quantum, or the field. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, or if your viewers and listeners are familiar, but essentially the way that I can explain it is that we have time is a man-made thing in essence. I'm a practicing nurse. And when a person has a near-death experience, they go into cardiac arrest. What often ends up happening is if they come back, they have a story to share, and they often will say, they were in cardiac arrest for 3 minutes, but when they went, off into some other dimension or some other portal, it was an eternity. It was an eternity, or, 1 second or 3 minutes was an eternity. But when they came back into their body, they were only flatlined for a minute. And so time is a man-made concept. It's a man-made construct. And we need time, going back to the grounding, because we live in this earth reality right now. We need the timing, but we can use it to our advantage. But the way I look at it is that there are ulterior realities that are layered on top of each other, kind of like a film. When you watch a film, it's each still image, and it's millions of those put together to create this vision or to create this movie. And what we can do by embodying our highest self, by doing the inner work, by doing all of these things that we've been talking about, is we can start to navigate ourselves through these realities into a higher vibrational reality, into a higher vibrational energy, so that we can start to manifest the things that we desire. Does that resonate? Does that land?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that I just like point, let me like bing, bing, bing. I'm trying to like file it all away here.
Totally.
But I want to get into the near-death experiences, because I'm sure that our listeners are like, yeah. So I know people are listening because they're not commenting, and when they're not commenting, they're really listening. So if you guys, please feel free, if you guys want to chime in or ask questions on the chat, feel free. We can take them. Right on the stream. And if you want to come on the stream with us, please let us know. Just put your email in the chat. We'll get you backstage, and we can answer your question. But I have to get into the near-death experiences, because I didn't know we would be talking about this tonight. But you're a nurse. How many near-death experiences have you witnessed, and what was the most compelling one that you've seen?
Yeah, so I personally, thank goodness, I have not experienced any near death. I've had, unfortunately, a few people who have not made it and have moved on to the afterlife. And that's quite a, as an intuitive and as a empath, I can feel it. And it's very interesting how we have to handle, again, going back to that reality, handling and grounding, because oftentimes I'm in a leadership role as a charge nurse too. So I have to, present myself in a very strong, almost like very divine masculine energy to make sure everyone else is supported. And then I go in and I process it myself. But I have a friend who has had a near-death experience, and he was in for, there was something wrong with his heart, and he was having a procedure, and he flatlined for 5 minutes. And he said that it was actually after that moment that he realized what his gifts were in the world, and that he wasn't living in alignment to his gifts. And so after that, he has just completely skyrocketed, and just the most like authentic way possible too. And that's so important. That's like one of the most important things. And I've had, somewhat, my father recently passed away 2 years ago.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. But he gives me signs every day, so that it goes kind of, I know we're kind of flowing in.
Yeah. What you're with your friend, the one that had the heart procedure, what did he tell you he saw, and who told him that he was off his path? Did he see heaven? Did he go through the tunnel? Like, what did he experience?
Saw bright light, and he felt this peace, this deep peace and love, just like just enveloping his entire body. It was a sensation, although he wasn't in his body at the time. And then it was like this knowing, he said. It was this knowing. And he also saw his grandma, who had had passed away years before. But, I think that we can access these realms and these portals here too, in this lifetime as well. I think it's just an illustration and a testimony to the fact that there's so much going on that we can't maybe physically see with the human eye, but we can feel, or maybe you can. There are a lot of clairvoyants. I'm more of like a knowing. I get downloads, or I'll get kind of, I've had a vision here and there. I had one big vision while I was in India. But yeah, it really attests to this notion that there's so much at play that we can't necessarily physically see.
Yeah, and what you're saying, and I'm sure he got some sort of telepathic message that he was offline and he's got to get back on his path. And that's the same thing that I get as a medium when I'm doing sessions for clients. They say, oh, they're not on their path and they have to change. So we can get those messages. You're right, like here on the earth plane. And it's interesting that you had mentioned that. And it's funny that George is on, because he hasn't been on in a while, but he was on our show many times talking about he had a few, he flatlined a few times.
Oh, wow.
And he went through the same thing, the tunnel, and he saw his grandmother in the tunnel. I think it was his grandmother. I'm pretty sure it was. George, correct me if I'm wrong, but he came on the show to talk about this, and it's almost the exact same thing that you're describing with your friend that he went through. So yeah, but what's interesting is the consciousness You're his great aunt. Sorry. Yeah, George, your great aunt, not your grandmother, but you did see her on her favorite lazy boy chair, if I remember,
Wow.
floating in the tunnel. Yeah. So the consciousness of the world where we are now is, if we have the opportunity to vibrate so much higher than we ever did by going through our trauma and our healing and getting to the other side and connecting with heart energy. That means if we could vibrate that much higher, which is what mediums do, it's like the fan that's turned off is when we're not doing any intuitive work. And when it's turned on, you can't see those blades of the fan. That's just like spirit. We can't see them.
Right.
But where our consciousness is going with the earth in space, in our galaxy, I'm taking it beyond the earth. I'm taking it in our galaxy. We're moving toward a higher degree of consciousness, and people are having the opportunity to move through those realms in the living, in the earth plane. But then the people, the dimensions are closing in. So we have that opportunity to make that connection even more so than we ever did in history now. So we have that ability. I know we didn't plan on talking about this.
I love it though.
That's where it goes. So you talking about love and about connecting to the heart. You are a person that has, oh my God, hit, and a lot of the people that are watching tonight, I know people personally that are watching tonight, have gone through very tough childhood experiences, and therefore they take that into their relationships and the people they choose. Not that they want to choose that type of pattern, but people do. And you have been through hell and back, and that's what brought you to where you are today. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and talk about how you met your soulmate and how you broke that pattern?
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So one of the there's a couple pivotal moments. I'll share one if it's okay, which is that a decade ago I was actually married. I was married to a narcissist. He was a wrong person, and a lot of that, I was very young at the time, and a lot of that came from not knowing who I was as a person, not learning the coping mechanisms, growing up in a lot of childhood trauma, a lot of scarcity mindset, a lot of believing that the world is unsafe. And after that, I remember that was 10 years ago. I just remember waking up. It was starting to get to a point where I would wake up every night at 3 a.m. in the morning, just in like my bed sheets, drenched with sweat, heart racing, pounding so fast out of my chest, I thought I was having a heart attack. I literally thought I was dying. And my thoughts racing of, what the hell am I doing with my life right now? And so it was about 4 months of this constant battle, this internal struggle that I was going through. I was becoming an insomniac, and I did think I was going to die. You can die if you aren't sleeping, if you are literally going on zero sleep. I think it's up to 3 months. Don't quote me to that. So I thought I thought sure enough, I'm going to die pretty soon. And then something came, a few other things came into my life where I realized I needed to get help. I needed to start putting myself first, taking care of myself. I was like feeling very suicidal at the time, which was a feeling that I had in high school. And this was 15 years later. So that was kind of the red flag. And because of that, that led me to going back onto my spiritual journey. I had always been in tune. I was always such a curious little girl about, world religions and different philosophies and that sort of stuff. And I also grew up in a private Catholic school. So
yeah, me too. 12 years. Yeah, 12 years of the Catholic education.
Too, yeah. So I decided to move to India for 6 months. I bought a one-way ticket. Yeah. And that was
a one-way ticket? Were you like, just tell me why you bought a one-way ticket?
I quit my job in PR, and I was like, I have to figure my life out. And I went to India because India is deeply spiritual. I mean, you've heard of the Beatles that wrote the White Album after going to India. Steve Jobs formed Apple after India. It was amazing. And actually, do you mind if I share the vision that I had?
No, please. It's so interesting. Absolutely.
I'm kind of taking you all on a journey, but I am getting to the love part, I promise you. So I was in an ashram for 30 days and I was doing something called pranayama, which is breath work.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's where you alternate nostrils. And the belief is behind pranayama is that you open all the chakras you align all the chakras, open them so that Shakti energy can go up. And essentially the way I look at it is it's just that all of your energy centers, all of your chakras are aligned and you're vibrating at the highest frequency possible in this body. And while I was doing this, like in a matter of a minute, I felt this light, it was lightning flash down the top of my head, down to my spine. And it wasn't painful, but it was this sensation. It was very electric. And then immediately after that, I saw this flash of light in front of me. And for a millisecond, it's like, speaking of, time and the concept of time, it felt like it was like an hour, but I know it was only just a millisecond of a time it was a millisecond. And I saw what I saw was that everything in this universe, absolutely everything, humans, plants, flowers, animals, rocks, boulders, the planets, the cosmos, the stars, were all connected by this golden cord to create this golden web. And it was freaking amazing. And if one person were to nudge on their cord, it would send reverberations across the entire web. And while I was seeing this vision, I was feeling this deep, deep sense of tranquility and peace. And I saw in the middle of this web, this larger golden cord that shot directly up. And all I can attribute it to is that it was source energy. You can say God, source, universe, your inner guidance system. And that energy was the energy that was in kind of the head honcho position, but it was a very loving energy. It was a very compassionate energy. And it really, now, when I've been able to finally process this big vision I've had for almost 10 years, what it means to me is that it's the law of oneness. It's the law that you and I and everyone else in the system, everyone else in the universe, everything else, you and I are one. And we're also one with God. We're one with source energy. And when you think about that, imagine how powerful we truly are to create our own realities. I mean, imagine the power we have to co-create anything that we want out of life. But it didn't happen right away for me. It took another 10 years of living. It took another 10 years of going through and having ups and downs. And I will still continue to have ups and downs. We all do. That's part of growing. If we're not growing, we're dying. It's that nature. If it's not growing, it's dying. So it took 10 years. And I entered a very toxic relationship about 5 years ago with a man who was very much a narcissist. And
let me just get in on that, because I'll forget what I have to ask you. Why do you think, after that spiritual experience, what were you drawn to, and why do you think you entered that, looking back on it now?
Why did I enter that vision?
That relationship after you had the vision?
Because I still had some things that I needed to learn. And I was, the universe was tapping me on the shoulder and trying to say, hey, Jen, open your eyes a little bit more, honey. Open your eyes a little bit more. Love yourself more. Be more compassionate. Be more patient with yourself. Trust the process more. But instead, I wanted to control and manipulate because I was so desperate for being in a relationship and feeling loved, because I wasn't loving myself.
Right. By the energy that you couldn't get loved from before. So it was like you're trying to feel okay by connecting to the same vibration that felt familiar. It felt like home because it was familiar.
It was familiar because I grew up in a really tumultuous childhood too. So yeah, absolutely.
So that's love. That's the energy of love.
In my neural pathways, absolutely. In my conditioned response, in my belief system at the time, that was love.
Yeah, that's what you're hardwired to. That's what your wiring is mechanically.
Yes.
It's just flashes when you hits like that socket and that cord just flashes and you're like, oh, fireworks, that means I should go toward this. And it's like, no, run. It means
Actually,
run.
it's like, get out of here.
Yeah.
That's TNT, it's dynamite. Get away.
So looking back on it now, if you were to tell people that moment where they meet that person and those neurons starting to fire, and there's some men in our audience that are talking about the same experience that you had as a woman, and George had it as a man, being in a relationship with a narcissistic woman. So I think that's what he's saying, but correct me if I'm wrong, George. What would you say for people that are in the in-betweens, that got out and are getting back in and are just starting to maybe date somebody or see somebody, they're like, okay, this one's different. What should they be looking out for so that they could change that pathway now?
Yeah. I think the most important thing, at least I can talk to my personal experience, is that I was a serial dater. I was a serial monogamous relationship. I was in one relationship after another and actually needed to take some time off. It was at that point, at the end of that relationship, that last toxic relationship, that I realized I'm done. I was exhausted. I was at my rock bottom and I had no desire and I couldn't give anything else to anyone except for myself and my daughter. That was the energy I was in. And it was my saving grace. And so the biggest thing I can say first and foremost is take all the time that you need and just love on yourself, like heal, work, enjoy life, learn how to stand on your own 2 feet. That is so important. And then when you feel like you're ready, some of the signs are, one of the familiar things for me in past relationships was arguing was normal, because I grew up in a household where yelling was the norm.
Right.
And so if we weren't yelling at each other, then there was
That's not love. That's not love.
It's not love. Yeah. And also get used to sometimes being in the mundane.
You get bored.
Because if we grew up in a system or in a some sort of environment at any point in our lives where we thought love was conflict and struggle and explosion and argument, that we're going to take that, we're going to carry that over into our relationships. And so when things would get peaceful in my household, that's when my family would totally explode because it wasn't comfortable for them. And that comes from generation and generation. Right. But what I've discovered is that sometimes I've been able to catch myself stopping myself and trying to pick an argument or start an argument, or thinking, oh my gosh, there's something wrong because it's not that exciting right now. We're just sitting on the couch watching TV. I feel like we should talk. And it's like, no, just enjoy these moments. This is the beauty and the peace and the stillness in between the other parts of the beautiful journey of being in this relationship. And this applies to all areas of life. It's working on grounding ourselves into this present moment and trusting that if you're being seen, if you're being heard, if you're being respected, if you're feeling safe, some of those things may come up that so that's been the biggest thing for me, is learning to just love some of the mundane parts of being in a relationship.
Yeah. And I think as you go deeper into relationships, they change, they evolve over time. And it's not going to be that, immediate, fireworks display, and fireworks turn to ashes immediately. You want the slow burning flame is what I always talk about. The slow burning flame. But a lot of my clients, there's a lot of them that are like, oh, I have the greatest, husband or wife, believe it or not, you think it would be men, but it's women sometimes. And they the greatest husband in the world, but I need I need something exciting. And this isn't exciting enough. So, and it's but what they're missing is that connection to themselves. They're missing their creative passions, and they're looking for it in that oh, I need to feel like I just met someone. I have this, crush, and I have all these chemicals, but those chemicals wear off. It doesn't last forever. So I think what happens with people that are cycling like this and then kind of cut out when they get bored is they're not comfortable with intimacy. They're not comfortable with vulnerability, because that's the scary part. That, I mean, subconsciously, I think we all know when we're in an unsafe relationship that we don't have to be vulnerable. Like, we don't have to really crack our unemotional unavailability. So
Absolutely.
we are looking at people that are emotionally unavailable, but yet we were also. Because
Absolutely.
if the universe was like, if you had like the genie come down and be like, okay, Jen, here it is. I'm sending him to your door, and he's got a bouquet of flowers, and he's everything on your list, and he's like, I'm ready to get married. Like, everything's here. You would run for the hills and be like, what is wrong with this guy? He's really weird. Why is he being
100%.
nice to me? I have no connection with this person.
Yeah, because and this probably will resonate with a lot of the people watching, is that if you've been in trauma, it first of all was never safe for you to be vulnerable.
No.
You had to have your defense mechanisms up. You had to have the wall up to keep yourself safe. And also, there's a level of being honest with yourself about when you're actually ready, and that feeling will come. And trust that feeling when it does. Trust that it will eventually come. Don't try to push it. Don't try to force it. I remember for a long time, in those 2 years where I was in this great pause in my life with relationships, that I was really focused on my creative pursuits, what lit Jen up, because for so long,
Yeah.
I was a codependent. I'm a recovering codependent. And I was always trying to make sure the other people in the room were happy. All right, is everyone good? Is everyone good? Okay, now I'm exhausted.
Yeah, now you're drained. You have nothing to give yourself.
Now I'm drained. It's an energy leak.
Yeah.
And so it came to a point where, I became selfish. And there was nothing wrong with it. There is a difference between being selfish and being self-centered. And that's absolutely necessary. But that's what I did, is I really looked to pursue my creative passions. What lit Jen up? What lights me up? What brings me joy? And also, as a single mom, I have a little 4-year-old, and I want to teach her the best that I possibly can. It was also that I wanted to break that cycle for her, and I wanted to show her what real love was. And at the time when I was at my rock bottom, 2.5 years ago, and in a physically and emotionally and abusive relationship, I realized it was at that point I was like, this is not what I'm going to teach my daughter. I'm not going to teach her that this is what love is. I was taught this was love, and I'm going to break this cycle. And I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. And you just take it one small step at a time. You do. It's being so patient with yourself and so compassionate with yourself, and knowing that there is always light with the dark. And there's beauty with a passion. And kind of what you mentioned about the emotional intimacy, when we can be intimate with ourselves, when we can allow ourselves to feel those feelings, to reparent our inner child and just speak the way that we would to our children, or in a loving way that we would to a small child in front of us, when we can start to really, like, that's the integration, that's the grounding, that's the embodying to the manifesting. That's all of it, was when we can reparent and do that work, and we can become intimate with ourselves. We can also then become intimate with the universe, with source energy. Because what happens is when we do that, these beautiful qualities start to ascend to the top. It's because our heart is breaking and it's opening, and we're finding that there's really tender places in our heart, and it's really freaking beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, it's that taking off these layers and allowing ourselves to hold that space for ourselves first, that we can then feel that courage and that bravery to be that way when the time is right with someone else in a romantic way.
Well, yeah. And I think if we can't hold space for ourselves, and most of the time we are seeking somebody else to take care of us, hold space for us, that is not able to, because they can't hold space for themselves.
Yes.
So we're sitting here, and it's like, well, how do you hold space for yourself? And I always tell people, keep it simple. If you're tired, go to sleep.
Yes.
If you run down, don't try to push yourself to finish a
Yes.
project or go take care of a draining friend or family member.
Yes.
If you're thirsty, get a drink. Like, start with the very basics as you would like you are a child.
Yes.
Because most of the time we can't even meet those basic needs
Yes.
when we first start out holding that space for ourselves and taking care of ourselves, because we were so used to taking care of everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So let me tell people, because I could go on for 2 more hours.
I know, this has been fun.
Well, Chris had a question and I wanted to get to this. What are some good grounding exercises, if you don't mind sharing? So
not at all.
I'll give that to you.
Yeah.
Do you have any grounding exercises you'd like to share?
One of the biggest ones is the inner child work. That has been so successful for me and also for my clients that I work with. Because it really, it requires us to take and shift our perspective, reframe things, and it gives us so much compassion and grace and love. And like you said, talking, Jen, you were kind of being really irritable the other day. You can take a nap next time. You don't have to push yourself through this next time. And when we are in that mode, it's a receptive mode. When we, like you mentioned, take a nap or feed ourselves or hydrate ourselves, we're receiving, and that's also really important for manifesting too. It's a really big energy to be in, to be able to receive that.
Yeah. And I would say, Chris, too, sometimes I have a hard time grounding myself because of the work that I do. So for me, just taking my shoes and socks off and putting my feet on the floor is really good for me to ground myself. And also, I tend to dissociate a lot, like because I'm good at my mediumship, and that requires me to not be here. So if I'm upset or anxious or angry, sometimes I just go to that and just not be here. So for me, grounding is being present in the space that I'm in. Like, if I have a blanket, I'll touch the blanket to like feel the blanket, or an animal, a pet, so that you can feel it. Name the things that are in the room, like, oh, that's a painting, or that wall is yellow, or that light. Like, go and look at some of your favorite things in the room and describe them out loud. You'll start to ground. Smells, like take everything back to your senses. And I like to touch things because like textures will get me to like feel like I'm back in the present moment, if that makes sense. And then somebody that I worked with for some energy work, he recommended a grounding mat, which is called earthing, which for me, because I am so used to not being in my body, that was a little too much for me, but people love it. You could order it on Amazon. It's called a grounding mat, and it actually replicates the electrical current of the earth, and it helps you like sleep better and everything. And I just did it too long the first time. I did it for like 2 hours, and I really I started like really getting out of my own energy. But for people that are sensitive, he said like to do it 10 or 15 minutes a day, and that could help ground you as well. So anyway, I hope we answered a lot of your questions tonight. You guys were quiet, which means that you probably liked what we had to say. So I want to talk about Jen for a minute here. And if you want to connect with Jen, it's pretty simple. Just go on the IG. I am Jen Adamson. And if you go into, if you watch the replay, you can just go right to this clip, go right to Instagram and follow Jen. She also is offering for our viewers an opportunity to join the Wild Soul Sisterhood and to give you a free book on manifesting in abundance on Instagram. So did you want to talk about that a little bit, Jen?
Yeah. So the free ebook is coming out soon. So if you're interested, let me know. Just send me a quick DM over IG or Instagram for short. And that is my signature series program. It's the 5 secrets to manifesting the life of your wildest dreams with ease. So that's love, purpose, abundance. And if you're a woman out there and you want to go deeper into this work, I have a beautiful sacred sisterhood called the Wild Soul Sisterhood. You can also find me and reach out to me over Instagram on that as well. Yeah.
And then you have the Jen's Free Abundance Meditation. So you guys can access this right now by going on Instagram and checking it out. Let's see what people have to say. So Michelle loved it. She was listening the whole time. Great to see you, Michelle.
Thanks,
And Chris, great. Chris, glad we were able to help you with some of those resources. Tim, thank you for the validation. We love our men coming on here. It's so nice to see you guys.
So cool.
So thank you, Jen, for coming. And I really feel like you were meant to be here tonight, my friend.
Agreed. So, thank you, Marisa. Thank you for allowing me to come onto your show. This was so fun and such a fun conversation.
Yes, and I followed you on Instagram myself, so hopefully we can stay connected and you can come on again anytime. Once again, manifestation coach Jen Adamson, and we loved having you on, Jen. We have some great compliments. Maria says another informative and interesting lounge. Thank you. Margaret Ratchford, thank you. Paula, thanks, ladies. So our ladies, the people were listening. They were just really, really tuned in tonight. So, and obviously, you guys, if you're coming on later, check the replay. It's always on YouTube or on Instagram or on Facebook. You can go right to the latest post and our replay will be right there. So thanks, guys. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I'll see you next week for the weekly energy forecast and the lounge next week. We have a musician on next week. Chris Willis will be back with his lovely tunes, his acoustic, romantic tunes, sensual tunes. You guys loved him last time, and he will be back on again next week. So we will see you soon. Bye. Have a great weekend.